The challenged Eklund stood alone on the edge of the desert battlefield. The wind blew hot sand around his boots. In front of him, hundreds of alien warriors watched in silence. Their armor shone like black glass in the evening light. He could feel their eyes on him, cold and full of hate, but he did not lower his weapon. He knew if he showed weakness, they would attack. A tall figure stepped out from the front line. She moved with a slow, powerful grace. Her armor was dark silver, marked with bright red symbols. A long cloak fluttered behind her in the wind. In her right hand, she carried a spear taller than Kellen. Its blade was curved and sharp, catching the last rays of the sun. She stopped 10 steps away from him. Her face was hidden behind a smooth metal mask. Her voice rang clear across the sand when she spoke in her own language. He did not understand the words, but he heard the challenge in her tone. His translator earpiece buzzed, then whispered, "I am Vela, daughter of the High Blood. I call you to single combat." Kellen swallowed, his mouth dry. He looked at the spear in her hand. If he refused, they would see it as fear. If he accepted, he might not survive, but he could not turn away. This was the only way to end the standoff without a full war. He took a slow breath and stepped forward. "I accept," he said. His voice was steady, though his heart was not. A low murmur passed through the alien soldiers. Vaela lifted her spear and held it across her chest. The translator spoke again in his ear. "You will face my blade or prove your worth another way." Kellen frowned. "What other way?" he asked. But she did not answer. She turned her body sideways and lifted the spear behind her shoulder. Her stance was strong and sure. He realized late what she was about to do. She was going to throw it. The wind fell still. For a moment, there was no sound. Then Vela let out a sharp cry and hurled the spear with all her strength. The silver blade flashed through the air. It moved faster than any weapon he had ever seen. His heart slammed against his ribs. He knew he could never dodge it. So he did the only thing his training taught him. He lifted both hands, and he caught it. The impact drove him back 3 steps. The shaft of the spear burned cold in his palms. His arms shook. But he held on. The battlefield went silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. Hundreds of alien eyes watched him in shock. Vela stared at him through her mask, her body frozen in place. For a long moment, no one moved. Kellen slowly lowered the spear. He looked at her, breathing hard. "Is that enough?" he asked, his voice rough. She did not answer. Her hands lifted, trembling, to the clasps on her chest armor. She unfastened them and let the armor fall to the sand. Then she dropped to her knees, her head bowed low. The alien soldiers gasped as one. The translator in his ear crackled to life. "By the old law, she is yours." His chest tightened. "What does that mean?" he asked, his voice sharp. The elder alien stepped forward from the crowd. His robes were white, marked with silver lines. His face was lined with age, his eyes dark and deep. "She challenged you," he said slowly. "You caught her weapon. You claimed her spirit. She belongs to you now." Kellen felt cold all over. "No," he said. "I don't want this. I don't claim anyone." The elder shook his head. "The law does not ask what you want," he said. "She must follow you until you release her or until death." Kellen looked at Vela, still kneeling in the sand. Her hands rested on her thighs. Her head was bowed so low he could not see her eyes. He could see the muscles in her arms shaking. He knew she was furious. And ashamed, but she did not lift her head. He stepped closer, holding the spear out to her. "Take it back," he said firmly. She did not move. The elder's voice was soft but final. "She cannot," he said. "Not unless you command it." Kellen looked at the spear, then at the woman kneeling before him. He had come here to end a war, not to bind someone to his will. He did not know what to do. But as he stood there, the setting sun turned the desert gold around them. And in that strange silence, he felt the weight of what had just begun. The ancient law. Kellen stood with the heavy spear in his hands. The sharp blade still gleamed in the fading light. He looked down at Vela, who knelt before him. She did not lift her head. Her breathing was slow and steady, but her hands were clenched tight against her legs. The elder in white robes stepped closer. His eyes were dark and calm. "You have made the claim," he said softly. "I did nothing," Kellen said. "I only caught the spear." The elder nodded. "Double quotes in our law. That is enough." Kellen felt his mouth go dry. "I don't want a claim," he said. I don't want her to belong to me. The elder's voice stayed calm. You must understand. This is not about what you want. He looked at Vela's bowed head. For her, people, this is a sacred bond. If you walk away now, she will be shamed. She will not be allowed to return to her tribe. Kellen felt a heavy weight settle in his chest. He looked around. The other alien warriors stood in a wide circle, watching in silence. He knew if he said the wrong thing, they could all turn on him. He took a slow breath. What happens now? He asked quietly. The elder folded his hands together. She is yours to command. He said, you may order her to serve you, or you may release her with a ritual. Kellen frowned. A ritual? It must be done before witnesses, the elder explained. But it cannot happen now. The moon must be high. Kellen looked down at Vela again. She still did not move. She looked carved from stone. And until then, he asked, she must stay with you, the elder said. She will follow you and protect you. She will not leave your side. Kellen felt tired all at once. He had come here to make peace, not to take a prisoner. He turned the spear in his hands. Its weight felt wrong to heavy for something he had never wanted. He knelt down in front of Vela. He spoke softly, careful not to sound harsh. Look at me, he said for a moment. She did not move then, slowly. She lifted her head. Her eyes were dark and bright at the same time. Like the embers burning in the dust. Her face was strong, but there was something sad in her gaze. I don't want you to feel trapped, Kellen said. I didn't mean to take anything from you. Her jaw tightened. Her voice was quiet, but clear. You caught the spear, she said. The law is older than you or me. He searched her eyes. Do you want to be free? Her gaze did not waver. What I want does not matter, she said. My honor is bound. He felt his throat tighten. I don't believe that, he said. You have a choice. Her eyes flickered, but she shook her head. Not in this, she whispered. He stood slowly and looked at the elder. Where will she stay until the ritual? The elder inclined his head. With you, he said. It is tradition. Kellen looked back at Vela. She still knelt, her head lowered again. He did not know how to fix this, but he knew he could not leave her here alone. He turned to the elder. Then let it be tonight, he said. We will perform the ritual as soon as the moon is high. The elder nodded. So it will be, he said. The alien soldiers stepped back to clear a path. Kellen gestured to Vela. Come with me, he said softly. She rose without a word. Her movements were graceful, but stiff, like she was carrying an invisible weight. She followed him as he walked toward the rocky pass where his camp waited. Her steps were silent behind him, but he felt her presence like a shadow he could not escape. As the desert wind blew around them, he turned once to look at her. Her face was calm, but her eyes watched him with something he did not understand. Not hate, not fear, something deeper. Something that made his chest ache. He turned away and kept walking. In that quiet, he realized this was not just the start of a treaty. It was the start of something neither of them could yet name. The silent companion Kellen walked through the narrow pass toward his small camp. The sun was nearly gone, leaving only a line of red behind the cliffs. He could hear Vela's footsteps behind him, soft and steady. She never spoke, never asked questions, but he felt her watching every move he made. He reached the campfire he had left burning. A ring of stones kept the wind from blowing the flames out. He set the heavy spear carefully beside his pack. When he turned, Vela was standing at the edge of the circle. Her face was hidden in the dusk. Her hands rested at her sides, still and calm. You can sit, Kellen said. Her head tilted slightly, but she did not move. He tried again. Please, sit, he said more gently. She looked at the fire for a moment. Then she stepped forward and knelt just outside the circle of light. She rested her hands on her knees and lowered her head, like a guard waiting for an order. Kellen sat down on a flat rock. He rubbed his hands over his tired face. This was not how he imagined peace would look. He had thought it would feel simple, like something finished. Instead, it felt like the start of something he did not understand. The wind picked up again. It tugged at her long cloak. She did not seem to feel the cold. He reached into his pack and took out a wrapped bundle of dried rations. He placed it on the ground. Between them, eat, he said. Her head lifted just enough to look at him. I am not hungry, she said quietly. Her voice was low and even, but he thought he heard something tight beneath it. You haven't eaten since morning, he said. You need strength. She looked at the food. then away. I will eat when you order it, she said. He felt something heavy in his chest. He did not want to give orders. He did not want to be her master. But he also did not want her to starve out of stubborn pride. Then I'm asking, he said, not ordering. She was silent for a moment. Then she lifted her hand and slowly took the ration pack. She unwrapped it carefully and ate without a sound. When she finished, she set the empty cloth back down between them. Thank you, she said in a low voice. He nodded. The fire cracked softly. He studied her in the shifting light. Her face was still and calm, but he could see her eyes. They did not look at him. They stared past the flames, like she was somewhere far away. Are you afraid? He asked quietly. Her eyes shifted to meet his. He was surprised to see no fear, there only sadness. No, she said. I am ashamed. He swallowed. Because of the law, because I failed, she said. Her voice was so quiet, he almost did not hear it. I was meant to end this today. Not this. Her hand moved slightly toward the spear lying beside his pack. I dishonored my people. Kellen looked at her and felt something twist inside him. He picked up the spear and laid it gently across her knees. She froze. This belongs to you, he said. She looked down at it, but did not touch it. Her shoulders were stiff. Not anymore, she whispered. He rubbed a hand over his face, feeling helpless. He wished he could undo what had happened. But the old law was something stronger than both of them. He set the spear aside again and leaned back on his hands for a long time. Neither of them spoke. The stars came out one by one. The dessert grew colder. Still, she did not move closer to the fire. He reached into his pack and pulled out an extra blanket. He stood and walked over to her. She looked up at him, her dark eyes wary. He held out the blanket. Please, he said. She hesitated. Then she took it and draped it around her shoulders. Thank you, she said again. Her voice was softer this time. Kellen sat back down. The silence between them felt different now. Not easy, but less hard. He looked at her one more time before closing his eyes. He did not know what tomorrow would bring, but he knew she would still be here. When he woke up, waiting, watching, a silent companion bound to him by a law older than memory. Asterisk, the first Kellen woke before dawn. The fire had burned down to a circle of warm coals. He rubbed his eyes and looked around the camp. Law was still there. She had not moved far in the night. She sat with the blanket wrapped around her shoulders, her eyes open and watchful. She had been guarding him while he slept. He sat up slowly. You didn't rest? He asked. She shook her head once. It was my duty, she said. Her voice was quiet but steady. He studied her tired face. She had dark circles under her eyes. Her hair, long and dark, was loose around her shoulders. Without her helmet, she looked younger. Less like a warrior, more like someone he could have known in another life. He stood and stretched his stiff arms. You can sleep now, he said gently. I will keep watch. Her eyes met his. I will stay awake, she said. Kellen sighed. Vela, I'm not your master, he said. Her jaw tightened. But I am still bound, she whispered. He did not argue. He knew the old law held her in ways he could not break. But something inside him ached at the thought that she could not even rest. The first light of dawn touched the rocks around them. Kellen began to gather his things. He lifted his canteen and offered it to her. She took it without a word and drank slowly. He watched her throat move as she swallowed. When she handed it back, her hand brushed his. Her skin was warm despite the cold air. Thank you, she said softly. Her voice sounded a little different this time. Almost shy. They packed in silence. Kellen wrapped the spear in cloth and strapped it to his pack. He saw her eyes follow the movement. He knew she wanted it back, but she never asked. He wished he could give it to her, but he also knew the others would see it as an insult if he tried. They started walking toward the meeting place where the ritual would happen. The path was narrow and steep. Loose stones shifted under their boots. Vela moved like a shadow behind him, light on her feet, quiet as the dawn. Halfway up the path, she spoke. Why did you not leave me there? He glanced over his shoulder. Her face was serious, her dark eyes watching his. You could have walked away, she said. He took a breath. Because it wasn't right, he said. I could not leave you alone. Her gaze searched his. Even if I was your enemy. He nodded slowly. Even then, her eyes dropped to the ground. Her voice was small. You are not what I expected. They walked on in silence. When they reached the ridge, he stopped to look at the valley below. The sun was rising over the dunes. Golden light touched everything. For a moment, the world felt peaceful. Vaila stepped up beside him. She did not look at the sunrise. She looked at him. When the ritual is done, she said softly, I will be free. He nodded. Double quotes, yes. Double quotes. Her hands tightened into fists. And then what? She asked. He frowned. You will go back to your people. He said, you can live your life as you wish. Her voice grew even quieter. And you, I will return home. He said, to my own people. She turned her face away for the first time. He thought she looked sad. He wanted to ask why. But he did not. They stood together as the sun rose. Higher, neither of them spoke, but something unspoken passed between them, something he could not name. He only knew he did not want to see the sadness in her eyes again. When they reached the meeting place, the elder was waiting. He stood beside a tall stone marked with old symbols. He looked at Vaila, then at Kellen. Are you ready? He asked. Kellen looked at her. Her face was calm again, her eyes steady. Yes, she said. Her voice was strong, but he thought he heard something hidden under it, something like regret. He nodded to the elder. He thought of the spear he carried, of the bond neither of them had asked for, and he wondered if, in breaking it, they would lose something they had not yet begun to understand. The enemy's Offrith elder stood with his hands folded, his face calm. The old stone behind him was covered in carved symbols. Some of the marks looked older than the cliffs themselves. Kellen felt the weight of history pressing down on them. He looked at Vaila standing across from him. Her dark eyes were steady, but he saw a flicker of sadness there. The elder lifted his hand. If you wish to end the bond, he said, you must place the spear between you. She will speak the old words. You will speak them back. Then she is free. Kellen took a slow breath. He reached for the spear wrapped in cloth. But before he could lift it, a deep voice called out from behind them, wait. They turned as another group of warriors climbed the ridge. At the front was a tall alien man with dark red armor. A long scar crossed his cheek. His eyes were sharp as blades. Vaila stiffened. Her hands curled into fists. Warlordren, she said, under her breath. Her voice was tight. And walked closer. He stopped a few steps away, his gaze moving from Vaila to Kellen. He smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. You would break the bond so soon? He asked. His voice was smooth, almost mocking. Kellen narrowed his eyes. It was never my wish. He said, I never wanted her bound to me. Drin tilted his head. Yet here you stand. He said, the human who caught the spear. His gaze turned cold as he looked at Vaila. And you, proud daughter of the high blood, kneeling to an outsider. Vaila did not look away. Her voice was low. My honor is my own. Drin let out a short laugh. Your honor is broken, he said, but I will offer you both a choice. Kellen kept his hand near his weapon. What choice? He asked. And spread his arms. You give her to me, he said. I will take her into my ranks. No one will know she ever belonged to you. He smiled again. And you will have safe passage back to your people. Kellen felt anger burn in his chest. And if I refuse? He asked. And single quotes. S eyes turned sharp. Then you will be hunted, he said. Every step you take, my warriors will follow. The bond will be your curse. Vaila turned her face away, her jaw clenched. Kellen could see how her hands shook. She was trying to hide it, but he knew she was afraid, not for herself, for what her capture might mean. The elder stood silent, watching them both. The desert wind moved around them, cold and dry. Kellen looked at Drin. Then he looked at Vaila. Her eyes met his for just a second. And in that moment, he knew what he would do. He stepped closer to her and put his hand on her shoulder. I will not give you to him, he said. His voice was calm, but firm. Vaila's eyes widened. Dran's mouth tightened into a hard line. Fool, he hissed. Do you think you can protect her forever? Kellen lifted his chin. I don't know, he said, but I will try. Vaila closed her eyes. He saw a single tear slide down her cheek. She did not wipe it away. Dren stepped back. So be it, he said coldly. When you leave this place, you are enemies of my house. Remember that. He turned and walked back toward his warriors. They melted into the rocks like shadows. Silence fell again. Kellen let out a slow breath he did not realize he had been holding. Vaila wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. You did not have to do that, she whispered. He looked at her. Yes, he said quietly, I did. The elder stepped forward. You have chosen a hard road, he said. Kellen nodded. Maybe, he said. He looked at Vela again. But I think it's the right one. She did not speak. But when he looked into her eyes, he did not see only sadness. Now, he saw something warmer, something he could not name. The elder's voice broke the quiet. Will you still end the bond? Kellen looked at Vela. He waited. She looked at the spear, then back at him. Her voice was soft, but steady. I will stay, she said. His heart beat faster in his chest. Not out of fear, but something different, something that felt almost like hope. The escapee sun was high over the rocks when Kellen and Vela left the meeting place. They moved quickly down the narrow path. Neither of them spoke. Their steps were quiet, but each one felt heavy. Kellen knew the warlord's threat was real. Dran would not forget this, and he would not forgive. They reached the lower cliffs as the first shadows began to stretch across the sand. Kellen stopped to scan the horizon. Nothing moved, but he felt a chill between his shoulder blades. Vela stood beside him, her hand resting lightly on the hilt of a short blade. She did not look at him, but her voice was calm. He will come, she said softly. Kellen nodded. I know. He started walking again. Vela followed, her cloak brushing the rocks. They moved along the edge of the cliffs until they reached a narrow canyon. The walls rose high on both sides, blocking the wind. We'll camp here tonight, he said. Vela did not answer. She stepped past him and knelt to check the ground for tracks. Her eyes were sharp as she studied the dust. No one has passed this way, she said. Yet. Kellen dropped his pack and unwrapped the spear. He set it against the canyon wall. It felt wrong to carry it like a trophy, but he knew she would never take it back while the bond remained. He watched her for a moment as she moved around the small space, testing the rocks for weak spots. Her movements were careful, practiced. She was a warrior even now, even with everything that had changed. When she was satisfied, she sat on a flat stone near the canyon wall. She looked tired, but her eyes were still bright. Kellen crouched beside her. You should rest, he said. You have not slept for days. She shook her head slowly. I will stay awake, she said. If they come, you must be ready. He frowned. If they come, we will fight together, he said. Her eyes turned to meet his. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then she lowered her gaze. I am not afraid to die, she whispered. Kellen felt something tighten in his chest. No, he said softly, but I am not ready to lose you. Her head lifted again, surprise flickering across her face. She opened her mouth to speak, but before any words came, a loud crack split the air. The canyon wall behind them exploded. In a shower of rock and dust. Kellen grabbed Vela and pulled her down behind a boulder. Shards of stone rained over them. Through the dust, he saw dark shapes moving at the canyon mouth. Dran's soldiers. Vela drew her blade in one smooth motion. Her face was calm, but he could see her chest rise and fall faster. She looked at him, her eyes steady. We can't stay here, she said. He nodded. I'll cover you, he said. Run for the far wall. She opened her mouth to argue, but he was already standing. He fired his rifle in short bursts, driving the soldiers back. Vela moved fast, her cloak trailing behind her. She reached the far side of the canyon and turned to cover him. He sprinted after her, shots cracking past his shoulders. As he reached her side, she caught his arm. There, she said, pointing to a narrow crack in the rock. A tunnel. We can escape. He did not hesitate. Together, they slipped into the darkness. The passage was narrow, the ceiling low. He could hear the enemy soldiers shouting behind them. He felt Vela's hand brush his as they moved deeper inside. The tunnel twisted left and right. Cold air blew from somewhere ahead. He knew it must lead outside the canyon, but he also knew they were running out of time. Finally, the passage opened into a small cave lit by cracks of evening light. Kellen turned and aimed his rifle at the tunnel mouth. Vela pressed her back against the wall, her chest rising and falling. She was bleeding. A dark stain spread across her side. You're hurt, he said. She shook her head. I'm fine, she whispered, but her voice was weaker than before. He stepped to her side and reached for her hand. Her skin felt a warm. Vela, he said. You're not fine. She tried to smile, but her lips trembled. I told you, she whispered. I am not afraid. He pressed his hand over her wound to slow the bleeding. I am, he said quietly. Her eyes closed, and she leaned her head back against the stone, but she did not pull her hand from his. In that moment, as the last light of day fell over them, he knew the bond between them was no longer just a law. It was something else, something he could not name. The choicest cave was quiet except for the sound of Vela's breathing. Kellen held his hand over her wound, trying to stop the bleeding. Her skin was hot and damp. He knew she was in pain, but she did not make a sound. Her eyes stayed closed, her head resting against the stone wall. He pressed the small comm device at his belt. "This is Kellen," he whispered. "We need extraction. Coordinates marked." Static crackled in his ear. No answer. He tried again, but only silence came back. He swallowed hard. They were alone. Vela's eyes opened slowly. She looked at him, her gaze steady. "You should leave," she said in a thin voice. "They will come. You must survive." He shook his head. "I'm not leaving you," he said firmly. Her lips curved in the smallest smile. "You are stubborn," she whispered. He took a slow breath. "If we stay here, you will die," he said. Her eyes closed. "Then I die free," she whispered. His throat felt tight. "Free?" he asked softly. She nodded once. "Because you never treated me as less," she said. "You saw me." He felt something warm behind his eyes. "Vela," he said, "you have never been less." Her hand moved toward him, weak and shaking. He took it in both of his. Her fingers curled around his, holding on. "I wanted to hate you," she said. Her voice was barely a breath. "But I could not, and I could never hate you," he said. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The sun slipped lower, turning the cracks in the rock to lines of red light. Her breathing grew slower. He felt panic build in his chest. "Vela," he whispered, "stay with me." Her eyes opened one last time. "Take the spear," she said, "in the bond." He looked at the spear lying beside them. Its silver blade caught the dying light. "If I do," he said, "what will you choose?" Her lips parted in a soft sigh. "If I am free," she whispered, "I will choose to stay." His heart thumped hard. He reached for the spear and laid it gently across her knees. Her fingers touched it. The old law said this was the moment she was released. No more bond. No more Dewey. He waited. She looked into his eyes. Her gaze was clear, even through her pain. "I am free," she said. He nodded. "You are free," he whispered. Her hand lifted again. It rested on his chest over his heart. "Then I choose you," she breathed. Her voice was so soft he almost did not hear it. Her eyes closed, but her hand did not fall away. For a moment, he thought she was gone. But then her fingers twitched, still holding on. He bent his head over her hand and pressed it to his cheek. "And I choose you," he said quietly. Outside, the last light faded. The stars came out, bright and cold. He held her hand in the darkness, feeling her pulse weak but steady. He knew they would have to move soon. He knew the enemy might come again, but for this moment, they were safe. They were something more than enemies, more than bound by an old law. They were just souls who had chosen each other. When dawn finally touched the rocks, she opened her eyes again. Her voice was still weak, but her eyes were bright. "Help me stand," she said. He slipped an arm around her shoulders and lifted her carefully. She leaned against him, breathing hard. Together, they walked out of the cave and into the new day. The wind moved around them, warm and clean. She did not look back, and neither did he, because whatever waited ahead, they would face it side by side. By choice.